Hey everyone, Tactics here, and in this video I'll be going over the 8th and final dungeon of my KSM walkthrough series, concluding with the Theater of Pain. As with my other KSM guides, I'll be going over the route that we used, as well as providing you guys some tips and tricks to complete the key in time. Just a quick note before we start, I will be going over this at 1.25 times speed, just so the video length doesn't get out of hand, but if you want the original Twitch VOD, or you want the Mythic Dungeon Tool route that we used, you can find both linked in the description below. Now, with that said, let's just get right into it, and we are going to start off with a double pull here. Now, none of these mobs are terribly scary. If you have interrupts, you can get that Necrotic Bolt. The only thing you really want to focus on is actually the Raging Bloodhorn. So you see these in rage effects here. I actually recommend not dispelling these rage effects because it does actually make them take more damage. So it's just kind of on your tank there to live. If your tank is having trouble, you can get rid of the enrage effect, but we leave it on and we focus on the more important enrage effect on this Bloodhorn. It is an AoE to the entire party, you'll see here, and it can be soothed to prevent more stacks of the damage going off. Now on Fortified Week, we also Bloodlust this pull with cooldowns. I'm not 100% sold on it, to be honest. See, we have like over 15-20 seconds left on Bloodlust on that pull. It's very efficient because it goes with Bloodlust and it makes that pull go very, very quickly and smoothly. But I'm not 100% sold on it. Tyrannical Week, you'll always want to Bloodlust this boss here. The first boss on Affront of Challengers. But yeah, it's just, personally, I think the Lust helps it go smoothly. But maybe even on lower Keystone levels, you definitely don't need to use that Lust, and you can save it for the boss here. It'll just be without cooldowns. Now, in terms of this boss here, we'll always kill Desia first. Always, always, always. That is the most dangerous boss in here. Right? They'll absolutely chunk your tank. With the Mortal Strike combined with Slam for the healing reduction and a big physical hit. Tanks, you always want to make sure you have something up for that Slam hit. In Searing Death here, we missed that kick. We want to make sure the most important kick is Sathel. Both the Necromantic Bolts are decently important, and Searing Death is extremely important, so we kick that there. Passerin is not too important when it comes to kicks. We just have an occasional range kick when Passerin jumps out to bring them back in. But aside from that, we do want to kind of stay as close together as possible. And we're just focusing Desia. We're staying close together in case we get that rogue that comes out and will stun a random person. All you need to do is use any form of CC, but I believe we actually never get the rogue because we knock her out of invisibility before she's able to stun anyone. Now note that when Desia drips below 40% health, we did just immediately enrage the spell, so the fixate ends and it'll go back on the tank. For stuff like Necrotic, we actually let that fixate go out. And we'll wait until the tank drops necrotic stacks, and then we'll soothe the enrage effect, so the person has to just kite for a bit. But that's pretty much strictly for necrotic. Aside from that, Sathel is the usual secondary target. As soon as Sathel dips to 40% here, you'll see that we'll actually ignore Sathel and go to Passerin because Sathel's going to get a big shield. And it's just a waste of DPS to dump damage into this. So we actually swap to Desia and Passerin here. So after Desia dies, we'll go to Passerin instead of Sathel, and we'll just leave Sathel. He's uninterruptible at this point as well, so we'll just pump kicks into Passerin. And as soon as this shield goes down, you'll see us swap back. Yeah, but that is pretty much it. Just try and get as many kicks as possible, usually on Sathel, not Passerin, but obviously right now, Sathel was unkickable, and now as soon as he's kickable again, we go back into him. And the fight is fairly straightforward aside from that. Yeah, see, we're getting the rogue out before she's stunning anybody. And then from there, we'll jump down and we start in Xav's Wing. Nice RP. There we go. So Arbalists, especially on Fortified Week, but in general, they are a pretty important kill. The Jagged Coral, you can stun it to pseudo-interrupt it, but they're still going to cast it afterwards. And they just deal a ton of random damage, so they're a little bit scary. They just target random people and shoot them, so on higher Fortified, they can chunk people, so be very careful. We're going into the mini-boss. I believe this is the easier mini-boss, right? This is the one that really only hurts your tank with the flurry and the kickable damage. It doesn't really have any big AoE damage besides the leap you can dodge. And so it's not too scary. I think, yeah, Dokig is one of the easiest mini-bosses in this wing. Not too much to say about him. Gonna move Yeah, it's fortified, so they live a long time. Takes a little while. We'll grab the Necrolord banner there, and we'll move on to the next mini-boss. Alright, so this mini-boss does spawn your Prideful, just so you're aware. And it's just the Ricocheting Blade, so again, you just want to be spread out. And then it's the Battle Trance again, and the Charge. So yeah, this is another very easy one, actually. One of the easier ones out there. So we got kind of lucky. 2 back-to-back easier mini-bosses. And then this will lead right into our Prideful, which we're then going to tank into probably one of the scariest packs in the dungeon. You'll see what we do here. I don't think it's necessary 100%. It's just we had some bad timing at cooldowns, which I'll explain in a second. But yeah, we'll just killing this Prideful, and then we'll take that into the pack. Now, the pack does have 2 Arbalists, so 2 of the crossbow guys at random damage, like I mentioned before. And they also have the kind of squad leader type guy who has an AoE damage reduction, as well as an interrupt, the ancient captain there. So what we do, because if you look where we're at in the cooldown department, we're missing monk and hunter cooldowns. So we opt to instead just CC the captain and LOS these guys up into this area. Now, if we had all of our cooldowns, we would have just pulled it together 100% of the time. But because we don't, we're just going to LOS up here and get those Arbalists down as quickly as possible without the captain buff on them. Yeah, so this is a nice little LOS spot you guys can use if you want to ever do this pull. If you're ever a little bit spooked, you don't have any big cooldowns up with the Prideful to help deal with it. It's not too much of a time loss, and it's just significantly safer to do it this way. And then we'll just move on, we'll kill the captain, and then we'll go into the last mini-boss. That is the only kick in this entire pack too, just his demoralizing shout, so just always make sure that gets kicked. And I believe this is actually where we get a little bit trolled by wild spirits. Yeah, so we pull the boss, Swift Strikes. Yeah, so yeah, the wild spirits and the whirlwind, nice combo. Yeah, we get a couple deaths here. But for the actual Swift Strike, so what it does is it's going to throw swords, I believe, at range people. And if you're too close together, it'll actually throw multiple swords. So that is kind of the reason why the priest is so spread out from the hunter there, because they will cleave if they're too close together. But this is, yeah, just a little bit unfortunate where we see that whirlwind just a little bit too late. Yeah, so those swords would cleave if there was another ranged out there. But we managed to recover from this eventually. Not too much to say here. Just try not to stand in the whirlwind, and try not to have wild spirits troll you a little bit. And we'll just move on to the Pride. This Pride does go straight into the boss, and you see our Lust is just a little bit lagging behind. So we're actually probably going to, it'll depend on the timing. I think, yeah, we'll probably let it rip right at the beginning. But if this was like another 10 seconds delayed, you would probably want to wait until after the first set of Blood and Glory. I actually think we screw up this Lust too. Yeah, we Lust too early here. Yeah, okay, so we blow this Lust. But as you'll see, it's actually okay. But preferably you Lust here. I think we have a couple deaths because we missed the Bloodlust, but it's fine. This combo, just never ever get hit by anything. To do that, it normally means you need to hard focus those banners. Those banners are the only thing that is going to kill you on this fight. And obviously as a tank for brutal combo, you always want to have a defensive, and then you're just hard focusing the banners whenever they spawn, because if the banner is up during this combo, it can get not this combo, the Might of Maldraxxus combo, it can get extremely scary. Right, with everyone slowed by a ton here. And just during this combo, your #1 goal is to just dodge, because it looks scary on the health bars, right? Everyone's pretty low, they all get chunked down. But as you see, if you dodge, there's no other damage. Right, hard focusing banner. Yeah, I think our banner damage was a little low here, and so we weren't able to kill the boss. Yeah, and so that's what happens if the banner is still up. So you want to make sure that you get those banners down ASAP. And I think from here, the boss is at this point where we ignore the last banner. We can just hard focus the boss because the boss is so low. And so we just kill the boss here and we'll move on to the Abomination Wing, actually. So what we do here to line up good pridefuls for the rest of the dungeon is that we're going to pull the front room of the Abomination area. We'll do it into 2 pulls. I mean, I guess technically you could do it in 1 pull if you really wanted to. But yeah, we'll do this in 2 pulls. The Sludge Spear, just the Withering Discharge you want to kick. And then Diseased Horror, ideally you either Channel Interrupt or also kick that guy. His Meat Shield, just because it gives him a ton of health. The Putrid Butcher has something you can Pseudo Interrupt, and it'll stop casting. The Diseased Flesh, or Devour Flesh rather, you can stun it, disorient it, all that stuff, and it'll stop the cast. And that will heal him. And it's also will attack the closest target if your tank is kiting, so try not to kite past your squishy guys. Will hurt. Yeah, this is the last pack we pull in here, and again, strictly for lining up pridefuls, and then we'll move on. Yeah, and then we'll move on to Necromancer area. So we split this area into 2 pulls. We pull the first half of the shackles, and then we'll run through and LOS the second set. So if you see everyone is staying behind, I'm grabbing the shackles, pulling them back. This is probably a good spot for AoE stuns and disorients and interrupts. Yeah, see, we didn't quite have leg sweep up, unfortunate. Got a little unlucky on target choice, but you know, it happens. They all wanted the hunter dead. And we're just slowly cutting these back, getting them down, and then we'll move on through. And in this part, all the party runs through. You want to aggro them as late as possible, these spirits, just so people don't get messed up by the slow. And so I'll stampeding us through, grab all these targets. And then everyone runs around this corner to LOS. Yeah. Same deal, we have some CC down. And I think I missed one, yeah. I go back and pull. You want to make sure you get all those spirits. Sometimes one of them doesn't pull for, you know, some reason. He doesn't want to come. Right, and then you have these Portal Guardians who are quite scary. Right? They have this curse they'll put on people, which can be dispelled. And then Soulstorm, you'll need a defensive. So you see we have Turtle, we have Priest cooldowns going out there. It deals a ton of damage on Fortified weeks. Even on Tyrannical weeks, it doesn't tickle. So you want to make sure you're prepared for that, your healer is prepared for that, and you're ready for defensives. This is one of the scariest parts in the dungeon, this stretch right here, from those spirits to a couple packs from now. Because it goes spirits, which are scary, into that guy who's scary, into the pride, which can be scary, into another scary pack, which we're holding cooldowns for starting now. You see there's 50 seconds on cooldowns now. They're timing their cooldowns to be for the next scary pack. Here we're popping pretty much every defensive we need to in order to live. Because again, we're holding those big cooldowns. And then from there we go right inside this portal. So right for the first portal is a very easy pull right here. Double Magus. They need to be dispelled. They have a bone armor on them. I believe we Blood Elf dispel them. Yeah. And just Bone Spear is a random target attack. If it's hitting your tank, you actually don't need to kick it, but I mean you can if you don't if you have enough kicks. But if you're in like a heavy range group, you might not have enough kicks. So this right here, this is another very, very scary pull in the dungeon. One of the 2 most scary ones. The Arbalist one was the first one. This one is the second. So what happens is this guy, the Soulbinder, is going to put magic debuffs on random players, and he's also going to cast a volley that has to be kicked. That magic debuff trucks. It hurts very, very, very hard. Hits very hard. There's the Bone Spear guy who's not too much of a big deal. You just want to make sure Bone Spear is kicked. And then there is that same Soul guy who will put a curse on people, and then he will also do that big AoE. So that's the magic debuff I was talking about. We're going to try and dispel as many as possible, but you see here our group is going to stack up, and we're going to use Barrier and every other defensive that we have available to us. and we like barely live this. Absolutely barely. So any defensive we have available, barrier, our healer's going crazy. He PI'd himself to try and get throughput. And it's a little rough. And that was all of our offensive cooldowns as well. So yeah, that pull needs to die. We then go left onto the second platform. So right for the first platform, left for the second. And we just have the double dark speaker pull. So you just need to watch these tornadoes, not get hit by them. And then they put the curse on people that can be curse dispelled. And you just need to dodge the swirlies essentially. Spirit Frost is not a terribly important kick. You can get them, of course. I mean, if you have enough kicks, you might as well. There's nothing else to kick here. It's just a tank hit. And we'll finish this pack off, and then we'll go into... I wouldn't... it's definitely a harder pull in the dungeon, but it's definitely nowhere on the level of the previous two pulls I was talking about, the big scary ones. So if you're able to get through those, you should be able to get through this one. This one is actually all about positioning. So what you want to do here is going to be a Dark Speaker. So this Tornado guy with the Soulbinder. What are we waiting for here? Oh, we're waiting 10 seconds for cooldowns. That's what we're doing. Yeah, so we actually hold and we wait for cooldowns for this pull. And so it's the Magus, the Soulbinder, and the Dark Speaker. So of course Soulbinder's going to put this magic on. We got lucky, it went on me. That's very good. And then the Bone Spear, and then there's just the Volley Kick and this Tornado. So you want to make sure what we do, we normally do anyways, is we'll have the healer stay at this gate, and everyone else should move to this gate, especially on Storming Week. We trolled our healer a little bit there because we aimed a couple tornadoes at him. But especially for things like Storming Week where you don't have a lot of space, you want your healer in like the back corner and everyone else over here, just so your healer never really has to move for like the Dark Speaker tornadoes or the Storming Whirlwind itself. Now this goes into another Pride, and then we're taking this Pride into the Necromancer boss. The Necromancer boss is definitely one of the spookier fights in here on Fortified and on Tyrannical Week. You're always lusting him, and like I said with the Xav lust too, you're always gonna lust Xav, Tyrannical or Fortified. The only question is when, right? Do you lust him on pull if you have it on pull, or do you lust him after the first set of people come back? And that'll depend on whatever your timing is. For this, you should always have Bloodlust up for Kul'Tharok. You always want to lust with this Pride. And so we get some unlucky parasites here. See, we can only usually dispel 1 or 2. It alternates. And so if you are the parasite person that doesn't get dispelled, you need to pop a defensive every time. If you see there for the draw souls, we go inside the actual portals. So let me rewind because okay, this is it, right? Yeah, so for the actual draw soul itself, it is the least damage taken if you actually step into the portal. And you see our hunter will actually feign death here to stagger the damage. It does kind of mess up the other person though. When you're doing that, only one person actually gets the portal, so just be careful. But you can just feign inside of it to cause the damage to come instantly. And he steps inside of it. He's turtling because he had the other debuff too. And you'll actually pick it up after only taking 1 tick. So if you stand behind the portal, you'll take a couple ticks at least, sometimes 3. It's actually much safer to have it dispelled in the portal. You see there, he had both things. He almost died because it's just, that's how much damage is going out. It's a ton of damage. We got pretty unlucky here with the Phantasmal Parasites as well. It's actually very, very good for your tank to get one because there's not much tank damage going out in this fight anyways. You actually prefer to have a tank get it, but yeah, it's just a little bit unfortunate with the target selection, but it is what it is. Yeah, the feigning is a pretty good trick because again, it staggers the damage. Bladestorm also works, as you see our warrior bladestorming to get rid of that one. But if you have 2 people that have the thing and are actually going to take the damage, the hunter feigning early lets them take the damage initially, the healer can focus them, and then a couple seconds later the second person will go and the healer can focus them, rather than having 2 people get chunked at the same time. We're then moving into and finishing off the Abomination area. Don't forget this banner right there. This is just pretty straightforward. Double Sludge Spear, so you want to kick both Withering Discharges, and then you want to try and pseudo-interrupt the Butcher's Devour Flesh. Chop is just going to hit a random melee target, so be aware. And from here, we actually skip both, skip in this room, and you can watch the patrol, the big fat dudes. What are they called? Gas bags? Yeah, the gas bags. So yeah, they're both kind of in bad spots, so we just go in the one that's padding faster. And you'll see we'll just follow behind it. No need for any abilities, you just need to do it at the correct pat time. He'll stop over there, and then you can just hug this wall and get in. And then we have the Sludge Spear kick again, and then just another Butcher to keep an eye on. And then, of course, the Meat Shield if you have the extra kicks for the Diseased Horror. Yeah, there is a pretty nasty disease in these packs as well. I believe it's the Diseased Horror that puts it on you, yeah. So you'll want to keep an eye on your tanks if you have any form of Disease Dispel. And make sure it's gone, even if it's on, like, for example, if we didn't have the Priest Disease Dispel, if we had something else and we have the Monk Disease Dispelling, definitely as a DPSer, make sure you're dispelling that off your tank, because it really is a pain. I believe it's, I think it's a stat reduction. And then we have the gas bag. We do pull them alone. Don't walk into the middle of this hallway, because it'll spawn the little lads. Which you definitely don't, I don't recommend pulling all those little lads with this gas bag. It gets pretty sketchy as it is. These gas bags do a lot of just general AoE damage. Yeah, we do have one death there. It's not too bad though. And then we're going to pull the jumping around guys. I believe I Ursul's here right at the beginning just to try and keep them all in one spot. It doesn't work too well, but yeah, there is just one Sludge Spear in here that you need to worry about right there. Aside from that, they just do a bunch of random damage, which is why you really kind of don't want to pull them with the big fat guy. All right, and then we're moving into the last trash pull of the dungeon. Just one Butcher, one Horror. So you want to make sure you're kicking the Horror, and you want to make sure you're pseudo-interrupting the Putrid Butcher. This does spawn your final Prideful now, to bring into, what is it, Gorechop? He is an extremely thick boss. He has a ton of HP. There is a chance on Tyrannical weeks that your Lust is actually up for him, depending on how fast you're going. If your Lust is up for him, I would actually recommend Lusting him with Prideful. Just because he takes so long. But as you see, we still have quite some time on our Bloodlust. I believe we end up Bloodlusting the final boss phase 2. Just because of how long we have on our Lust. But yeah, if you have it up for this boss, especially on Tyrannical weeks where the boss fights are extended, so there's a chance you actually have it, it's not a bad spot to use your Lust on. And we're going into Gorechop. And this is a fairly straightforward boss. It's just make sure you have a defensive for Hateful Strikes, and just make sure your tank, you want to try and pick up these ads as quickly as possible. And then using various CCs, I think Binding Shot, the tank, you can drop the Binding Shot and you can trigger the Binding Shot. I think we do that in the next pack of ads, so I can show you guys. Just so they don't jump and do more random damage. Yeah, so we binding, and then yeah, we trigger the binding, and then they're stuck there, so they won't jump. And then we also have Ursul's as well, which will just stop one jump. And I believe if you target yourself during that grip in, if you saw there, so let's rewind a second. If you target yourself, you see the hunter doesn't go anywhere. He switches his target to himself, and he doesn't get gripped in. That's how that works. It can be a little disorienting, but you can not get gripped in by that if you target yourself. Yeah, from there though, yeah, he's not terribly difficult on Tyrannical or Fortified. He can be a little bit sketchy with Necrotic in particular, just because it can be difficult to reset your stacks. You have to do a lot of running around during this the hook phase, where the boss is busy doing other stuff and the ads aren't aggro to you yet. But yeah, he's not a terribly difficult boss outside of that. He's just very, very thick. And here we're just booking it to start the RP on the final boss. And we're going to end up lusting after 50%. So when he starts the ghost stuff with the guys fighting in the center and the chargers, that's when we're going to blow Bloodlust. Just because your damage above 50% really isn't terribly important. And you see here, we're all going to come fairly close to the boss. And that's just to make sure that we can easily sidestep the Dark Dev. As a tank, Reaping Scythe is extremely scary. You want to make sure you pretty much always have a defensive up for Reaping Scythe. Fortified weeks, it's a little more forgiving. You can get away with having just some active mitigation up. But Tyrannical weeks, like, you need something every single time. You need something. Alright, for these rifts, we try and stay close together. And then what's going to happen is we're all just going to kick in our own ad. And they're all going to group up. The next combo above 50% is actually very easy. I believe it's the no ad combo. Yeah, these combos are always the same above 50% and below 50%. That the below 50% is when it triggers the new one. So yeah, there's no ads in this one. So it's a very easy one. They'll hit 50% and they'll trigger the new rotation of combos. So these combos will always be the same as every other time you're below 50%. The ones above are always in the same order. So the first combo here is actually the scariest one in the entire fight. So blow literally every defensive you have to live. So you have this charge first into the Dark Dev, and then when you get the portal, you get the ads, and you get dudes fighting. Right? So, and you get a scythe on the tank, I believe, as well. So yeah, literally every cooldown you can to live here. I believe we turtled, right? We did the warrior popped all his defensive, monk popped defensive, like anything you can to live there, you pop it to live. And then from there, it's just an easy combo. You're just dealing with one mechanic at a time pretty much. You get the rift here, but there's nothing with it. It's just the rift, and you can just finish off the boss alone. But that pretty much wraps up this video on my KSM walkthrough series. Yeah, the entire series as well, actually. So thank you guys so much for all the kind words and support you gave me throughout this series. It really actually means a lot to me, so thank you for that. In terms of future videos, I'll be putting out more Mythic Plus guides focused on things like important interrupts in all dungeons, things like dispels, things like tank busters, just to have those all isolated into one specific video for you guys. Just stay tuned for that. I'm also going to be starting a series where I pug my way to Keystone Master as a prot warrior, one of the least represented tanks, and I'll be streaming that on my Twitch as well at Tactics, so feel free to drop by and check it out. That's all for now, though. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I will see you in the next video.